As someone in the comments of a previous video pointed out, lots of people say they're done with Rolex until they get the call. If you want a Rolex, all power to you. They are nice watches. But if you're just a little bit tired of lack of availability, blinked out gold releases, secondary market shenanigans, and tone-deaf comments from the CEO, then here are some excellent options. There are so many good watches out there. Let's dive in. The Oyster Perpetual. It's simple, it's elegant, it's understated, and quintessentially Rolex. I would give you two options, the Nomus Club Sport or the Omega Aquaterra. The Club Sport is a great deal cheaper than an Omega and a Rolex, but you get so much watch for your money. The movement isn't quite superlative chronometer standards, but it's plenty precise and it's in-house and it has more than enough power reserve. At 39 millimeters, it wears well for everybody and there are several good-looking dial options to choose from. The Aquaterra, same deal. In the 41mm version, you get a watch that is both a little bit more manly than the Oyster. It's got more muscle to its design, where the Shades models, which are a little bit smaller, are on the flashier and dressier side. You get impeccable finishing, you get vastly more interesting dials that aren't limited, and you get a METAS movement. The Submariner, the Icon. This is the dive watch to beat of all dive watches. It's not necessarily the most exciting watch in the world, but it conveys luxury and status like no other dive watch. You might think the Seamaster 300M would be an alternative, and it definitely is. A watch that is good enough for James Bond should be good enough for you as well. But it's not the watch I think best conveys the same sense of luxury that the Rolex does. For me, it's the Glashütte CQ and the Glashütte Daydate CQ. They both have the same design language. There are slight visual differences to these watches. One is a bit larger and has the panorama date and looks more like a classic diver, where the smaller CQ is more of a skin diver. They both have in common that these cases and dials are premium to the extreme. They are exceptionally well finished and well ahead of anything you'll see on the good, but not quite unique dials of the Submariner. For the Daydate version, you also get a display case back exhibiting a movement that outshines the displayed movements in a Daytona or a 1908 by leaps and bounds. The bracelet is the best in the business and you get more color choices than you do on a regular Submariner. This is a statement piece, much more so than a Submariner in so many ways. And like the Glashütte ads say, it's daring you to be original. The Yachtmaster, or the Boat Submariner. There's a titanium version where I'd choose a Pelagos any day of the week. There are a lot of different options in the Yachtmaster lineup, including the base steel options. But for me, the standout option is the rose gold Oysterflex configuration. The alternative, if you're sticking with rose gold, the IWC Moon and Tide Yacht Club is far more interesting. The strap is sexier and the blue on both strap and the dial pairs so well with the rose gold. The case is a bit bigger than most of the Yachtmasters, but with a unique complication, this watch is just sexy as heck. If a full rose gold watch is a bit out of your league and you don't want to support Tudor either, you are not out of options. A Panerai Luminor Marina Quaranta in 40mm is a strap monster. It does leather, it does steel, it does rubber bracelets with ease. The P900 movement gets you 70 hours of power reserve, water resistance is more than up to the task, and it's wearable unlike some Panerais of old. The Explorer 2 is probably one of the most difficult watches to find an alternative for. I own an Explorer 2. It's not the most popular of the sports models from Rolex, and I still think it's one of the most interesting though. Because it doesn't have a ceramic bezel, because it isn't available in two-tone or full gold. This is the watch that maintains that last vestige of Rolex's tool heritage more than any other. If I were to forgive you for not going for any of the alternatives, it would be because of this watch, especially the one with the polar dial. But you could find an alternative. Grand Seiko Evolution 9 GMT. 41mm is infinitely wearable. You get a distinctive dial, which is leagues ahead of anything Rolex does. The movement is no slouch either. It's the 9R spring drive, which is a technological accomplishment par excellence. It's titanium, and that typical restrained style that is so typically Grand Seiko really elevates this tool watch style. It's a stunner. We might as well get the Explorer over with as well. This too is an iconic Rolex. This is also a distilled simple tool watch, although you can get it in a two-tone model. For me, it's a toss-up between an IWC Pilot Mark 20 and an Omega Railmaster. The IWC has more power reserve, it has more dial options. The bracelet is superior to the Explorer bracelet in every way, with a better approach to easy adjustment and a quick release system. The Railmaster, well, it's an unsung hero in the Omega lineup. You can't go wrong whichever one you pick. The 1908, an average watch at best. The Cellini was better, especially the moon phase. I saw the platinum version at Watches and Wonders. It looks nice enough, but the light blue guilloche dial didn't blow me away like I thought it would. I'm going to give you 3 options, all of them vastly superior to the Rolex. The first 2 are from JLC. If you want to save a buck or two, get the $25,000 Gold Master Ultra Thin moon phase. It's thin, it's elegant, it's exquisitely put together, and you get a cooler complication from the master watchmaker. If you want something a little bit more interesting, it's not platinum, but the new Perpetual calendar Ultra Thin is leagues ahead of what Rolex is capable of. Rolex charges a premium because it has a crown and it's shiny. But there's also another alternative. Get a Patek. Why waste your money on the least popular Rolex when you can get a Calatrava, the ultimate dress watch icon? Even though it's not the most popular Patek either, it's still harder to get a hold of than a Rolex, and it is fundamentally what Rolex wants the 1908 to be, but knows it never will be. And if all of those prices just seem totally bananas to you, get a Nomos Tangente in gold maybe. Still a brilliant choice. The Skydweller is the bigger Submariner. Omega has you covered, of course, with the Planet Ocean, but doing a video where I throw out Omega constantly is going to be a little bit repetitive, and it wouldn't demonstrate what I'm trying to demonstrate, that there are lots of excellent alternatives out there to every single Rolex model. The Skydweller needs to be subbed for the new Blancpain 50 fathoms in 42mm. The 50 fathoms is the icon of icons. Despite its icon status, it doesn't get a whole lot of real-world love. Historically, that's likely been because nobody really cares that much about Blancpain, and because the 50 fathoms has always been this 45mm monster. But now it's there, the 42mm. It's still on the thick side, but here we're subbing it for the Skydweller, so it doesn't matter. The Skydweller does go deeper, but 50 fathoms is more than enough. It's an accomplished diver. What you do have to take note of in particular is that Blancpain is finished to a much higher degree than any comparable Rolex. Rolex is good, no doubt about it. Blancpain is stellar. And for me, the movement is actually the star of the show here. The new 50 fathoms has 120 hours of power reserve, which is thanks to 3 mainspring barrels. The rotor is a rose gold rotor, which has been gray coated. It has more jewels, and where the Rolex 3235 movement is just a very good mass-produced movement, the Blancpain is a movement that dips its toes into high horology territory. There is no shortage of GMT-like watches out there. Tudor has their 41 and 39mm GMTs in different bicolor bezel configurations. Longines has the Hydro Conquest and the Spirit Zulu Time. Grand Seiko has options. The thing is, none of the watches that follow the same general conventions of the Rolex GMT look as good. The Longines Spirit Zulu Time comes close, but from a quality perspective, we have to be honest. The Rolex is on another level in terms of movement and finishing. A lot of the Grand Seiko sport forward options are a bit too bulky and don't come across as refined. A lot of the Seiko sports style watches are also just a tad too understated to compete like for like with the Rolex GMT. So I found myself going a different route. I would either upgrade on the movement and go for an Omega Aquaterra World Timer or a Grand Seiko Elegance Line SPG M253. They are 2 very different options, but they both do the job of telling multiple time zones as they are supposed to. They both come across as incredibly premium, and they both have a lot more personality than the almost ubiquitous Rolex GMT. The Daytona. This is the most desired watch according to secondary retailers. It still sells for more than double retail. I have grown to appreciate it over time. For the longest time, this was not a watch that resonated with me, but in recent years, gradually learning more about its history, I respect it more and more. I don't want it, but I do respect it. There's a watch I respect more. The Omega Speedmaster in white or black, the Moonwatch. Both of them, I feel, look better and are even more iconic, have a cooler bracelet and a vastly more interesting movement. For me, I don't even need the Ed White with the 321 Le Marnier based movement. The 3861 manual wind movement is significantly more interesting to look at and has a lot more history. Yeah, you sacrifice a little bit on water resistance, but you can get either of them. The white model right now might require a little bit of patience in the short term, but it will become available eventually. Nobody does the fluted bezel of the Datejust quite like Rolex. If you've ever sat in a car on a sunny day with someone wearing a Datejust, you'll recognize those individual light reflections on the ceiling of your car. No other watch bezel that I know of does that. Diamonds don't, platinum doesn't. It's just regular fluting, and nobody else does it the way Rolex does. A Cartier Santos is the watch that can get the job done. It's a style icon from a watchmaking powerhouse, Cartier. It's available in two sizes, one with and one without date. The regular base models, both in steel, two-tone and full gold, they are gorgeous. They are also thin, they wear exceptionally well. They are statement pieces that are far more refined than the Rolex. Rolex and the Datejust do recognizability like no other, but the Santos with the Roman numerals, the square dial, and the screws on the ultra polished bezel is more than up to the task in terms of eye-catching appeal. It's also thinner, it has a quick release bracelet, something no Rolex replicates. The Skydweller is a unique combination of Datejust fluted bezel and a one-of-a-kind movement innovation. Functionally, a GMT or a world timer will get the job done. From a complication perspective, it's actually a little bit hard to find an alternative, simply because this is a very Rolex patented specific way of solving the world time and annual calendar problem. For me, Parmigiani Tonda GMT Rattrapante. It's gold, it's gorgeous, it's a unique take on a complication. Again, it's a bit more expensive than the Skydweller, but my guess is, again, if you're in the market for a Skydweller, you are likely not counting pennies. 20,000 here or there is not going to make a difference to you. At least I hope not. I suppose you could extend the Santos argument to the Daydate, because what is the Daydate if not just a Datejust with an extra complication in full gold and a much cooler bracelet? But we all know that the Daydate is more than just the high-end upgrade to the Datejust. It's the president's watch, the power broker's watch. Nothing says I have arrived as much as a Daydate. However, why go for I have arrived when you can communicate I arrived a long time ago? Vacheron Constantin overseas. I know, I could have said Patek, but Patek is just as aloof, if not more so, than Rolex. Same goes for Audemars Piguet. Every time I've spoken to a Vacheron AD, I've always gotten the distinct impression that an overseas in gold was doable without having to kiss some CEO's feet first. Maybe it's because Vacheron is just that teeny bit less desirable than AP or Patek, but that bit of humility and respect for all customers, including the ones that will likely never buy one of their watches, is appealing to me. This year at Watches and Wonders, Vacheron also released a green dial version which does green and gold just as well as any collectible green dial and gold Daydate. And as a Springbok supporter, green and gold is the way to go. You'll pay 20k more than the Daydate, but the movement is better finished and so is everything else. Rolex is good, Vacheron is better. There's a reason one is Holy Trinity and the other is just exclusive. Did you think I forgot the Air King? Of course not. Now that the Yachtmaster II is discontinued, the Air King is likely the new black sheep of the Rolex family. This is the one that very few people want. I've actually liked it for a long time for that very same reason. The instrument board dial is an acquired taste, but myself, I've acquired it. The alternative, a Zenith Pilot. The Zenith Pilot, just like the Air King, has grown on me. It's a modern take on a classic pilot's watch design. The dial is textured to replicate the look of a fuselage of a mid-20th century plane. The watch is sporty without going overboard. It's restrained but different enough that it will stand out. It's a conversation starter, and with a 5 Hz movement, it has a sweep that would make any Rolex engineer jealous. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I like a lot of Rolex watches. Very few of them are noteworthy, quirky, or unique. They function as reference points. The GMT is how we picture a GMT. The Explorer is how we picture a field watch. The Oyster case is hyper recognizable. A Rolex looks like a Rolex. It looks like an evolution of Rolex that existed 60 years ago. I still love Rolex watches, but I'm tired of Rolex behaving like Rolex. It saddens me. And I do believe, as Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility. And I don't always feel that a brand that has a CEO that calls other brands pirates is managing that responsibility in a fitting manner. The future might very well be a world with very few steel Rolexes available and Rolex potentially going full gold. It's fine. They're a business and I'm sure they have the customers for it. For those of us, though, that aren't on the VIP list, don't worry. There are tons of good alternatives out there. So, what I want you to do is enjoy all the wonderful watches out there that don't have a crown logo, but are designed just as well, finished just as well, have excellent movements, and touch us just as much in the feels. Watches are supposed to be fun, so go spend your time on watches that make you smile. That's it for this time. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Be nice. Don't rant too much about Rolex in the comments. Have a great one. Like, subscribe. Cheers.